The message came on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. Every human colony, every space station, every mining outpost had gone silent at exactly the same moment. No distress calls. No final words. Just silence. Commander Zectile of the Hegemony Fleet stared at his command screen. 47 human worlds showed the same reading. No life signs, no communications, no ship movements. It was as if an entire species had simply vanished. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're getting reports from across the galaxy. All human territories have gone dark." Zektov's four eyes blinked slowly. He had fought humans in 3 border wars. They were stubborn creatures, always fighting to the last breath. They never gave up without making noise about it. This silence felt wrong. "Send scout ships to the nearest human worlds," he ordered. "I want to know what happened." The scout ships returned 3 days later with strange news. The human colonies were empty, but they looked normal. No signs of battle, no destroyed buildings. Food was still warm in some places. Personal items sat exactly where their owners had left them. It was as if every human had simply walked away. At the same moment, on the other side of the galaxy, the Zalari Empire was having the same experience. Their blue-skinned scientists poked through abandoned human research stations, finding experiments that had been stopped in the middle. Coffee. Cups civil sat on desks. Children's toys lay scattered in empty playgrounds. "This is most unusual," said Dr. Velinari, the chief Solari scientist. "The humans appear to have left everything behind." But where did they go? The Galactic Council met in emergency session 1 week after the disappearance. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime. The air buzzed with excitement and confusion. Ambassador Veltar of the Hegemony stood at the speaking platform. His tall, gray form cast a long shadow across the chamber floor. "Fellow council members," he began, "we face an unprecedented situation. The human species appears to have vanished completely." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some species whispered in worry. Others seemed pleased. "Our scientists have examined over 200 human settlements," Veltar continued. "All are empty. All show signs of sudden abandonment. We have found no trace of where they went or why they left." The Kethvan representative, a reptilian creature, with golden scales, raised a clawed hand. "Perhaps they finally realized they did not belong among the stars," she hissed. Humans were always too young, too weak for galactic civilization. Laughter rippled through parts of the chamber. Many older species had never liked humans. They thought humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable. They expanded too fast and asked too many questions. The humans controlled some of the richest systems in known space, said the Zalari ambassador, her blue skin shimmering under the chamber lights. "Someone must claim these territories. We cannot leave valuable worlds empty." More murmurs filled the air. Veltar could smell the greed in the room. Species that had envied human wealth were already planning their moves. "We should wait," Kane. A deep, ancient voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to look at the sage mind of Proxima. The old being rarely spoke during council sessions. When it did, its words carried the weight of 10,000 years of wisdom. The sage mind floated forward on its hover platform. Its massive brain, visible through transparent skin, pulsed with slow thoughts. "I have seen many species rise and fall," it said slowly. "Humans are different. They do not simply vanish. They adapt, they survive, they find ways to win when others think they have lost." Veltar waved a dismissive hand. "With respect, honored sage mind, the evidence is clear. The humans are gone. Whatever happened to them, they are no longer a factor in galactic affairs." "Perhaps they were destroyed by some unknown force," suggested the Kethvan representative. "A plague or weapon that left no traces. Or maybe they found something out there in the dark between stars," added the Zalari ambassador. "Something that convinced them to leave our galaxy forever." The sage mind's ancient eyes looked sad. "You do not understand humans as I do. I have watched them longer than any of you. They do not run from problems. They do not abandon their homes without reason, and they never ever surrender without making their enemies pay a price. But the council was not listening anymore. They were too busy dividing up human space. The Zalari claimed the mineral-rich worlds in the Kepler sector. The Kethven took control of the valuable trade routes through human space. The hegemony seized the strategic military bases that humans had built along contested borders. Smaller species grabbed what they could. The Altarian Collective took the agricultural worlds. The Rigel Syndicate claimed the industrial systems. Even the peaceful Centauri Union took a few quiet research stations. Within a month, every major human territory had a new owner. The Council officially declared humanity extinct by unknown causes and approved the new territorial divisions. Veltar stood in his private office aboard the Hegemony flagship, looking out at the former human world of New Terra. His ships were already in orbit, and ground teams were setting up the new colonial government. The planet was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents that reminded him of ancient stories about Earth. "It seems almost too easy," said his aide, a younger hegemony officer. "The humans built this world into a paradise, and now it simply falls into our hands." Veltar nodded. "The universe has a way of correcting its mistakes. Humans were too young for the responsibility of such worlds. We will use them more wisely." But deep in his thoughts, Veltar remembered the sage minds' warning. He had fought humans before. They were clever, resourceful, and dangerous when cornered. They had a saying, "It's not over until it's over." He pushed the worry aside. The evidence was clear. Humanity was gone, and the galaxy was better for it. Across human space, the new owners were settling in. Zalari mining crews stripped valuable metals from asteroids that humans had barely touched. Kethven merchants set up profitable trading posts on worlds that humans had used only for farming. Hegemony scientists studied human technology, looking for useful secrets. Everyone agreed that the disappearance of humanity was the best thing that had happened to the galaxy in centuries. The humans had been growing too strong, too influential. Their ideas about democracy and individual rights had been spreading to other species. Their disappearance removed a dangerous source of change and chaos. Only the sage minds remembered the old warnings. In their ancient data banks, they kept records of human history. Records that showed a species that never gave up, never backed down, and never forgot those who wronged them. But even the sage minds began to doubt their memories. As the months passed, maybe this time was different. Maybe humanity really was gone forever. They were all wrong. 6 months had passed since humanity vanished, and the galaxy was thriving. The great powers had never been richer or more confident. What had once been human space was now a collection of profitable territories controlled by species that knew how to use them properly. Admiral Ezekdal stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Zalari mining ships strip another asteroid field. The rocks were full of rare metals that humans had left untouched. Foolish creatures, he thought. They had lived on top of treasures and never bothered to dig them up. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the Zalari report another record harvest from the Kepler sector. They've extracted more resources in 6 months than the humans did in 50 years. Zekdal smiled. The hegemony was getting a cut of all Zalari mining profits as part of their territorial agreement. Human weakness had become everyone else's strength. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Silvara of the Kethven merchant fleet was having similar thoughts. Her ships controlled the trade routes that humans had used to connect their scattered worlds. Without human interference, trade was flowing more smoothly than ever. "The profits are beyond our best projections," her financial officer reported. The reptilian creature's golden scales shimmered with excitement. Human trade routes were poorly designed for maximum efficiency. "We've improved cargo capacity by 40% just by using larger ships." Savara nodded. Humans had always been too concerned with comfort and safety. They built small, slow ships with unnecessary features like recreational areas and medical bays. The Kethven had replaced them with efficient cargo haulers that could carry 3 times as much in half the time. "Any word from the outer colonies?" she asked. "All quiet. The new owners are settling in well." Production is up across all former human worlds. The transformation of human space was remarkable. What had once been a collection of diverse, independent colonies was now a well-organized collection of specialized worlds. The Altarians had turned the farming planets into efficient food production centers. The Rigel Syndicate had converted the industrial worlds into massive manufacturing complexes. Even the smallest powers had benefited. The Centauri Union had taken over human research stations and made breakthrough discoveries in physics and biology. They claimed that human scientists had been asking the wrong questions all along. The success was so complete that the Galactic Council decided to hold a celebration. The grand ceremony took place on the Hegemony flagship Dominion, the largest warship in known space. Representatives from every major power attended. Ambassador Veltar moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations from his peers. The celebration was his idea, and everyone agreed it was a brilliant way to mark their shared success. To think we were once worried about human expansion, laughed the Zalari ambassador. Her blue skin sparkled with jeweled decorations made from metals extracted from former human worlds. They seemed so determined, so aggressive, but in the end, they disappeared like morning mist. The Kethvan representative hissed her agreement. My grandmother used to tell stories about human warriors. She said they never knew when they were beaten, but look how wrong she was. They didn't even try to fight whatever destroyed them. Veltar raised his glass of imported Rigel wine. The deep purple liquid had been aged on a world that humans once called paradise. Fellow beings, he announced, 6 months ago, we faced an uncertain future. The humans were expanding rapidly, spreading their strange ideas about individual rights and democratic government. They threatened the natural order of the galaxy. The crowd murmured approval. Many species had been worried about human influence, especially on their younger populations. But the universe has a way of correcting its mistakes, Veltar continued. The humans are gone, and we are here to clean up the mess they left behind. We are turning their chaotic territories into productive, well-ordered systems. We are bringing civilization to worlds that knew only human barbarism. Applause filled the room. Several ambassadors shouted their agreement. Let us raise our glasses. To the future, Veltar declared. A future without human interference. A future where mature species can guide the galaxy toward peace and prosperity. The celebration continued deep into the night. Stories were told about the foolishness of human policies. Jokes were made about human customs and beliefs. Everyone agreed that the galaxy was better off without them, but not everyone was celebrating. In a corner of the room, the sage mind of Proxima floated silently on its hover platform. The ancient being watched the party with sad, knowing eyes. Ambassador Veltar noticed the sage mind's silence and approached. Honored elder, he said with mock respect, you seem unhappy? Are you not pleased by our success? The sage mind's massive brain pulsed slowly behind its transparent skin. I am old, it said in its deep, rumbling voice. I have seen many celebrations, like this one. I have watched confident species declare victory over enemies they did not understand. Surely you don't still believe the humans will return? Veltar laughed. It's been 6 months. Our scientists have examined every trace of their civilization. They are gone, honored one, completely and permanently gone. The sage mind turned its ancient eyes toward the viewport where stars shone in the darkness of space. The silence of a predator is not defeat, it said quietly. It is preparation. Veltar felt a chill run down his spine, but he pushed the feeling away. With respect, elder, you worry too much. The humans were never predators. They were just another young species that grew too fast and collapsed under their own success. The sage mind said nothing more, but its presence cast a shadow over Veltar's mood. The ambassador returned to the party, but the celebration seemed less bright than before. As the night went on, other guests began to notice small, troubling details. A junior officer mentioned that long-range sensors had detected unusual readings from the edge of several systems. A merchant reported that some of his ships had experienced navigation problems near former human space. Probably just leftover technology, explained a hegemony scientist. Human systems were always unreliable. It will take years to clean up all their electronic waste. But the reports kept coming. A Zelleray mining crew claimed they had seen something large moving in the darkness between worlds. A Kethvan patrol ship reported gravitational anomalies that didn't match any known phenomenon. Space monsters, joked the Rigel ambassador. The universe is full of strange creatures. Just because we can't identify them doesn't mean they're connected to the humans. The party finally ended in the early hours of morning. Guests returned to their ships, happy and confident about the future. The galaxy belonged to the mature, civilized species now. There would be no more chaos, no more unpredictable changes, Ambassador. Veltar stood alone on his bridge as the last guest ships departed. The celebration had been a complete success, but he couldn't shake the memory of the sage mind's warning. "Sir?" his communications officer interrupted his thoughts. "We're receiving a routine report from the outer monitoring stations. They're detecting some unusual gravitational readings from the edge of the Proxima system." Veltar waved his hand dismissively. "File it with the other reports. Probably just debris from old human experiments." But as he watched the stars through his viewport, Veltar couldn't help but remember human stories about monsters that hid in the dark, waiting for the right moment to strike. He told himself such thoughts were foolish. The humans were gone. The galaxy was safe. Far away at the edge of known space, something vast moved in the darkness between stars. Something that had been watching, waiting, and preparing. The celebration was over, but the real show was about to begin. 1 year after humanity's disappearance, the first real signs of trouble began to appear. They started as whispers, strange reports from the edge of civilized space that most officials dismissed as censor errors or pilot imagination. Captain Threlka of the Kethvan merchant vessel Golden Scale was the first to report seeing something impossible. His ship was hauling cargo through what used to be human space when his navigator noticed something on the long-range sensors. "Captain," the young reptilian called out, "I'm seeing a massive shadow moving through the Vega system. It's bigger than a space station, but it's not showing up on any of our ship identification systems." Threlka slithered over to the sensor station. The reading showed something enormous drifting between the outer planets of the system. But when he tried to get a closer look, the shadow simply vanished. "Sensor ghost," he decided. "These old human navigation systems are full of bugs. Make a note in the log and continue course." But similar reports were coming in from across former human territory. Zelari mining crews reported seeing dark shapes moving through asteroid fields. Hegemony patrol ships detected gravitational disturbances that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Commander Zektal received the reports with growing annoyance. He had more important things to worry about than phantom readings and nervous crews. "Sir," his intelligence officer said during their morning briefing, "we've lost contact with Survey Fleet Gamma. They were investigating gravitational anomalies near the former human world of New Geneva." This got Zektal's attention. Survey Fleet Gamma consisted of 3 heavy cruisers and a dozen escort ships. They didn't just vanish without reason. "Send the rescue fleet," he ordered. "I want to know what happened to them." The rescue fleet found empty space where Survey Fleet Gamma should have been. No wreckage, no debris, no distress beacons. The ships had simply vanished as completely as the humans had a year earlier, but the rescue team did find something strange. Their sensors detected traces of exotic matter in the area, particles that shouldn't exist according to known physics. The readings were too faint to analyze properly, but they suggested that something had folded space itself in that location. "What could do something like this?" asked the rescue fleet commander, the science officer. A young hegemony researcher studied the readings with growing confusion. "I don't know, sir. The energy requirements would be enormous. We're talking about technology far beyond anything in our databases." Similar incidents were happening throughout former human space. Ships would report strange sightings, then go silent. Rescue teams would find empty space and mysterious energy readings. The disappearances were always clean, always complete. On the former human world of Kepler 442b, Foreman Grelmax was having a different kind of problem. The stocky Zellari had been put in charge of expanding the mining operations that his species had built on the abandoned human colony. The work had been going well until the digging crews found something unexpected. Deep beneath the human settlement, they discovered vast underground chambers that hadn't been there in previous surveys. "These tunnels are new," Grelmax told his supervisor over the communication link. "The construction looks recent, but there's no record of humans building anything like this." The chambers were enormous, carved from solid rock with precision that impressed even Zellari engineers. They stretched deep into the planet's core, connected by passages that followed no recognizable pattern. "Maybe the humans had secret construction projects," suggested the supervisor. You know how secretive they were about their technology, but Grelmax wasn't convinced. He had worked on human worlds before their disappearance. He knew their building techniques and architectural styles. These chambers were different. They were built for something much larger than humans, and their purpose was completely mysterious. "Send down a full survey team," he decided. "I want to know what these chambers were designed for." The survey team spent 3 days mapping the underground network. What they found was disturbing. The chambers appeared to be some kind of manufacturing facility, with spaces designed for massive equipment that was no longer there. Power conduits ran through the walls, but they connected to nothing. Data cables led to empty rooms where computers should have been. "It's like they built a factory and then removed everything important," reported the survey team leader. "But what were they making down here?" Grelmax didn't have an answer. The chambers were clearly built with advanced technology, but their purpose remained a mystery. More troubling was the fact that they hadn't existed a year ago. Someone or something had carved them out of solid rock in the time since humanity's disappearance. Reports like these were filtering in from across the galaxy, but the major powers were too busy enjoying their success to pay attention. The Galactic Council received hundreds of strange reports, but most were filed away and forgotten. Only the sage minds were taking the reports seriously. In their ancient data centers, they began sharing information that they had kept secret for thousands of years. The eldest sage mind, keeper of the deep archives, called together its siblings from across the galaxy. The meeting took place in quantum space, where the ancient beings could share thoughts directly. "The signs are becoming clear," the keeper announced to the assembled minds. The humans did not simply vanish. They were preparing for something. The other sage minds shared their own findings. Ancient data files that mentioned human experiments with space-time manipulation. Research projects that studied the nature of reality itself. Theoretical work on consciousness transfer and dimensional engineering. "We found references to something called Project Ascension," reported the sage mind of Rigel. The humans were experimenting with quantum consciousness, trying to upload their minds into artificial substrates. "And here," added the sage mind of Altair, "evidence of research into dimensional folding." They were trying to create pocket universes, spaces that exist outside normal reality. The keeper processed this information with growing alarm. The humans hadn't been destroyed or driven away. They had been transforming themselves into something new, something beyond the understanding of normal galactic civilization. "We must warn the Council," the keeper decided. "The humans are not gone. They are becoming something else, something that may be beyond our ability to comprehend or control." But when the sage minds tried to share their findings with the galactic powers, they were dismissed. Ambassador Veltar listened politely to their warnings, then filed the report with all the other sensor anomalies and unexplained phenomena. "The sage minds are old," he told his staff. "Sometimes age brings wisdom, but sometimes it brings paranoia. The humans are gone. These reports are just the universe settling after a major disruption." The Kethvan and Zellari leaders had similar reactions. They were making too much money from former human territories to worry about ancient warnings and mysterious readings. But the strange incidents continued to multiply. More ships vanished near the edges of former human space. More underground chambers were discovered on abandoned human worlds. More shadows were seen moving in the darkness between stars, and in the deepest parts of space, where no galactic power dared to send ships, something vast was stirring. Ancient monitoring stations, left behind by species that had vanished millions of years ago, began detecting activity in regions that had been empty for eons. The activity was centered around a dead system at the edge of the galaxy, a place the humans had called the Veil Nebula. Long-range sensors couldn't penetrate the dense cosmic dust, but they could detect massive energy signatures moving within the nebula. Something was building in there, something large enough to bend space-time around itself. And if the old records were correct, the Veil Nebula was where humans had established their most secret research facilities. The whispers in the dark were getting louder, but the galaxy's leaders were too busy counting their profits to listen. They would continue to ignore the warnings until it was too late to do anything about them. In the depths of the Veil Nebula, humanity was preparing to return. But they would not be the same species that had vanished a year ago. They were becoming something new, something that would change the galaxy forever. The transformation was almost complete. 18 months after humanity's disappearance, the truth began to emerge in fragments scattered across the galaxy like pieces of a broken mirror. Each piece revealed something more disturbing than the last. The first real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Agent Kira Velanash of Hegemony Intelligence had been one of their best spies, known for her ability to infiltrate even the most secure facilities. She had been missing for 3 months, presumed dead on a routine scouting mission, when her escape pod was found drifting near the edge of the Veil Nebula. She was barely alive. Her gray skin had turned pale, and her eyes held a look that her rescuers would never forget. It was the look of someone who had seen the impossible. Agent Velanash. Commander Zektal spoke gently as she lay in the medical bay. "Can you tell us what happened? Where have you been for 3 months?" Her voice came out as a whisper, cracked and dry. "They're not gone," she said. "The humans are not gone." Zektal leaned closer. "What do you mean?" "Where did you see?" "Humans? The dead world," she whispered, "in the nebula. I found their facility on the dead world." According to her broken report, Velanash had discovered a hidden human installation on a planet that official records said was lifeless. The facility was massive, built deep underground and extending for kilometers in every direction. "Thousands of them," she said, her eyes staring at nothing. "Thousands of humans in glass containers connected to machines with cables and wires. They were asleep, but their minds were somewhere else." The medical staff exchanged worried glances. Velanash had been known for her stable personality and accurate reports. But what she was describing sounded like the ravings of a damaged mind. "The containers were connected to computers," she continued. "Huge computers that filled entire rooms. The screens showed things I couldn't understand. Numbers and symbols. That hurt to look at, and sounds that machines shouldn't make." She grabbed Zekta's arm with surprising strength. "They're not dead. They're becoming something else. Something that exists in the computers and in their bodies at the same time." "What happened to your ship?" Zektal asked. "How did you escape?" Velanash grip tightened. "I didn't escape. They let me go. One of them spoke to me before I left. It looked human, but its voice came from everywhere at once. It said they wanted the galaxy to know they were coming back." "What did they say exactly?" "It said, 'Tell them we remember who took our worlds. Tell them we remember who laughed at our silence. Tell them the children of Earth are coming home.'" Velanash died 3 hours later, her body shutting down from exposure to unknown radiation. But her final words haunted everyone who heard them. "They're not human anymore. They're something new. Something we made them become." The medical team's analysis of her body revealed traces of technology that didn't exist in any galactic database. Microscopic machines had been working in her bloodstream, repairing damage and keeping her alive far longer than should have been possible. "Commander," Zektal ordered a complete investigation of her escape pod. What the technicians found changed everything. The pod's hull contained materials that were harder than diamond but lighter than aluminum. The power cells used energy storage methods that violated known physics. The computer systems had been upgraded with processing cores that seemed to think on their own. "This isn't our technology," reported the chief technician. "It isn't anyone's technology. These materials and designs are completely new." But the most disturbing discovery was in the pod's navigation system. It contained detailed maps of former human space, showing the locations of every world that had been taken by other species. Next to each world was a notation in human writing. Remembered, the implications were terrifying. If Velanash was telling the truth, humanity hadn't vanished. They had hidden themselves away and spent 18 months transforming into something beyond normal understanding. And they were planning to return? Zekto brought the evidence to his superiors, but the response was predictable. "One damaged spy and some unusual technology proves nothing," declared Admiral Torvak. "The humans are gone. This is probably just some leftover experiment that drove the agent insane." Similar dismissals came from other galactic powers. The Zelari Empire claimed that radiation exposure had caused Velanash to hallucinate. The Kethvan Republic suggested that she had discovered an automated human facility and imagined the rest, but the Sage Minds knew better. When they learned of Velanash's report, they immediately began sharing their most closely guarded secrets. The ancient data files told a story that made the galactic powers' comfortable assumptions look foolish. For decades before their disappearance, humans had been conducting experiments that pushed the boundaries of science and philosophy. They called it consciousness uploading, explained the sage mind of Proxima during an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. The process of transferring a living mind into an artificial substrate while maintaining the connection to the physical body. Ambassador Veltar listened with growing annoyance. Even if such technology existed, why would they use it? What purpose would it serve? Enhancement, the sage mind replied. A uploaded consciousness can process information faster than biological brains. It can exist in multiple places at once. It can manipulate technology directly without the need for physical interfaces. The Kethven representative hissed her. "Skepticism. You're describing gods, not humans. Such power is impossible." "The humans also experimented with dimensional engineering," the sage mind continued. "They were trying to create pocket universes, spaces that exist outside normal reality but remain connected to it." "And quantum archaeology?" added another. Sage mind. "The process of reaching backwards through time to gather information and resources from parallel timelines." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. If the humans had mastered such technologies, they would be capable of things that defied imagination. "But why disappear for so long?" asked the Zalari ambassador. "If they had such power, why not use it immediately?" "Because transformation takes time," the first sage mind explained. "To upload an entire species while maintaining their individual personalities and memories. Such a process would require enormous preparation and precise timing." "And the empty colonies? Not empty preparation sites? Places where the physical transformation could take place while their minds lived in artificial substrates." The evidence was starting to fit together like pieces of a terrible puzzle. The underground chambers that mining crews had found weren't abandoned facilities. They were transformation centers where human bodies had been rebuilt and enhanced while their minds existed in quantum computers. The gravitational anomalies weren't sensor errors. They were signs of dimensional engineering, the creation of pocket spaces where humans could exist outside normal reality while remaining connected to it. The vanishing ships weren't accidents. They were being taken by beings who could manipulate space-time itself, beings who wanted to study their former enemies before revealing themselves. "How long do we have?" Veltar asked quietly. The sage mind's ancient eyes looked sad. "If our calculations are correct, the transformation should be nearly complete. They could return at any time. Return as what? As something new. Something that combines biological life with artificial intelligence." Something that exists simultaneously in normal space and in dimensions we cannot perceive. The council session ended in chaos. Some species demanded immediate military preparation. Others insisted on trying to negotiate. A few suggested fleeing to distant galaxies, but it was already too late for any of those options. In the depths of the Veil Nebula, massive structures were emerging from folded space. Ships the size of moons, powered by captured dark energy and controlled by minds that spanned multiple dimensions. The transformation was complete. Humanity had become something unprecedented in galactic history. They were no longer limited by the boundaries of biology or physics. They existed as pure consciousness controlling bodies that could manipulate reality itself, and they remembered everything. Every world that had been taken. Every celebration of their supposed defeat. Every joke made at their expense. The children of Earth were coming home, and they were no longer human in any way the galaxy could understand. They were something new, something that would remake the very foundations of civilization. The age of organic intelligence was ending. The age of transcendent consciousness was about to begin. 2 years after the disappearance, every long-range sensor in the galaxy screamed at once. The readings were impossible. Objects the size of small moons were materializing at the edge of known space, emerging from folds in reality that shouldn't exist. They appeared simultaneously in 100 different locations, surrounding every world that had once belonged to humanity. Commander Zectile stared at his sensor displays in disbelief. The objects weren't ships in any traditional sense. They were structures that seemed to bend space around themselves, creating distortions in the fabric of reality. His instruments couldn't even agree on what they were made of. "Sir," his communications officer reported, voice shaking, "we're detecting similar readings from across the galaxy. Every species is reporting the same phenomenon." On his main screen, Zectile watched one of the massive structures take position near the former human world of New Terra, the planet where he had established his new headquarters, where hegemony colonists had built cities on the ruins of human civilization. The structure was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It looked like a city-sized crystal that had been grown rather than built, its surface covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Energy flowed through it in ways that defied physics, and it radiated power on a scale that dwarfed anything in the galactic fleet. "Are they ships?" asked his tactical officer. "I don't think so," Zectile replied. "I think they're something else entirely." Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On the Kethvan homeworld, Admiral Silvara watched as 3 of the massive structures positioned themselves around her planet's orbital stations. The structures didn't move in any normal way. They simply existed in one place, then existed in another, as if the concept of distance didn't apply to them. In the Zelari Empire, Dr. Velinari's scientific instruments were registering energy readings that broke their measurement scales. The structures were outputting more power than entire star systems, but they were doing it quietly, without the massive heat signatures that such energy production should create. "It's as if they exist in multiple dimensions at once," she reported to her superiors. "They're drawing power from somewhere else, somewhere our instruments can't detect." The galactic powers tried to respond with military force. The hegemony fleet moved to intercept the structures near their territories. The Kethvan Navy deployed their most powerful warships. The Zelari launched their experimental weapon platforms. Nothing worked. The weapons passed through the structures as if they weren't there, yet the structures remained visible and continued to affect local space-time. It was like trying to shoot shadows that could reach back and touch you. Then the communication came. Every screen in the galaxy displayed the same image at the same moment. It was a human face, but changed in ways that made it barely recognizable. The skin seemed to shift between flesh and energy. The eyes held depths that suggested vast intelligence operating on multiple levels at once. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere, carried by forces that had nothing to do with sound waves. "People of the galaxy," the voice sighed, and 1 billion species heard it in their own languages. We are the children of Earth. We have returned. Ambassador Veltar watched from his flagship, his four hands gripping his command chair. The face on the screen looked familiar, but he couldn't place it. It had the basic structure of a human face, but it was somehow more and less than human at the same time. 2 years ago you celebrated our disappearance, the voice continued. You divided our worlds among yourselves. You mocked our memory. You called us weak for vanishing without a fight. Images flashed on the screen. Recordings of the Galactic celebration, clips of speeches where leaders had dismissed humanity as a failed species. Veltar saw his own face among them, making jokes about human weakness. But we did not vanish, the voice said. We transformed. We became something new, something that your limited understanding cannot fully comprehend. The image changed, showing the interior of one of the massive structures. It was filled with beings that had once been human but were now something else. They moved with impossible grace, their bodies flowing between solid matter and pure energy. They operated complex machinery with thought alone, their minds directly connected to technology that seemed to respond to their will. We exist now in multiple dimensions simultaneously, the voice explained. We can manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level. We can fold space and time to our purposes. We have become what you might call gods, though we prefer to think of ourselves as simply evolved. Commander Zektal felt a chill run through his body. These weren't the humans he had fought in border wars. These were beings of immense power, creatures that had transcended the limitations of normal existence. You took our worlds, the voice continued, but worlds are just matter. Matter can be reshaped. Reality can be rewritten. Watch and understand. The image changed again, showing the former human world of New Terra from orbit. Zektal realized, with growing horror, that it was his new headquarters, the planet he had claimed as the crown jewel of hegemony expansion. As he watched, the planet began to change. The surface rippled like water, then reformed into new patterns. The hegemony. Cities that had been built on human ruins simply vanished, their atoms reorganized into other configurations. The planet's very geology was being rewritten by beings who could manipulate reality at the most fundamental level. Your structures were temporary, the voice said, built on foundations that were never yours to claim. We are restoring our worlds to their proper state. Similar transformations were happening throughout former human space. Zilari mining operations found their equipment dissolving into component atoms. Kethavan trade stations watched their solid metal walls flow like liquid, before reforming into structures of impossible beauty. But we are not here for revenge, the voice continued, and for the first time it carried a note of something like mercy. We are here to offer you the same choice we gave ourselves. The choice to evolve beyond your current limitations. The image showed one of the transformed humans extending a hand toward the camera. Energy flowed around the gesture, and space itself seemed to bend in response. You can remain as you are, bound by the laws of physics and the limitations of biological existence, or you can join us in something greater. We can show you how to upload your consciousness while maintaining your individual identity. We can teach you to manipulate reality itself. Veltar found his voice at last. And if we refuse? The human face on the screen looked directly at him, as if it could see through the camera into his ship. Then you will remain in your current state while we rebuild the galaxy around you? You will be like insects watching gods reshape the world. Harmless but irrelevant. The communication ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. The massive structures remained in position, their mere presence a reminder of humanity's newfound power. Over the following days, the full scope of the transformation became clear. Humanity hadn't just gained the ability to manipulate matter and energy. They had become something that existed partially outside normal space-time, able to access parallel dimensions and alternate timelines. Their technology wasn't built. It was grown from pure thought. Their ships weren't vessels. They were extensions of their consciousness. They could be in multiple places simultaneously, Think at speeds that made quantum computers look slow and manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe with casual ease. Some species accepted their offer of transformation. The more curious races, the ones that had always pushed the boundaries of knowledge, chose to join humanity in their transcendent state. They underwent the uploading process and emerged as beings of pure consciousness controlling bodies of living energy. Others refused, choosing to remain in their biological forms. Humanity left them alone as promised, but the galaxy they inhabited was no longer the same. Reality itself had become fluid, subject to change by beings who existed beyond normal physical laws. Ambassador Veltar stood on his bridge, watching as Earth's sun pulsed with impossible colors. The humans were rebuilding their homeworld from the quantum level up, turning it into something that was both planet and spaceship, both matter and energy. What have we done? He whispered to himself. The answer came not from his crew, but from the transformed human consciousness that now monitored all galactic communications. You gave us a reason to become more than we were, the voice said gently. For that we thank you. Your mockery of our weakness drove us to discover strength beyond imagination. Your celebration of our defeat taught us the value of true victory. Veltar looked out at the stars, many of which were now pulsing with the same impossible light as Earth's sun. Humanity was spreading throughout the galaxy, not as conquerors but as gardeners, cultivating new forms of existence among the cosmos. Will you destroy us? He asked. Why would we destroy insects that helped us learn to fly? The voice replied. You are free to live your lives as you choose. But know that the galaxy belongs to consciousness now, not to biology. The age of transcendence has begun, and in the depths of space, where matter and energy dance to the will of transformed minds, humanity began their greatest project yet, the cultivation of an entire universe where consciousness could exist in forms